to the old with respect to form, size, material, etc. The review and approval are not required.
Right.
So I guess my only question is whether putting these, I mean, I was all in favor of having these on the same form, might be confusing, or do we need to somehow indicate in boldface that the like for like form is does not require approval, but is requested for informational purposes.
That sounds like a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Just to make it clear.
I also think that if we have a form coming in, and when the project is done, it's worth our time to kind of drop by the project to make sure it was like for like. Not that we can do anything at that point, but if we see a number of what should have been like for like, but they're not, we may need to toughen up that part of the regulation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So do we then assign a person to monitor that, or we probably?
We might do that, or ask for a volunteer on the board, on the commission. But
right.
I think the important thing is that since there's a lot of, in terms of the materials you use on the roof and items like that, because a lot of the roofs are like for like, just making sure that they're like for like, and we're not letting that standard degrade through no fault of anyone.
Well, I think it would be very awkward to go to a project after it's finished and say, "Hey, wait a minute." I mean, we know they wouldn't do anything about it. I think if we're going to be firm about like for like, I think it needs to be clear we're firm at the beginning, not midway or at the end of the project.
Or maybe what we simply do, one thing we could do is, if it's like for like, would be that, before construction starts, someone looks at the materials that are going to be used. I mean, I know that, I would say with our own house, we've gone through a couple of roofs, and it's not a real problem if the commission wanted to look at the next time we do something to have the material, so there's, that we know, in fact, it is like for like.
I just think with the form, we need to make it very, very clear exactly what we expect of the person.
I agree with you.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you want to take these comments, Martha, and make some suggested if modifications are required, and then send it out to us for a final review?
Sure, I'll do that.
Okay, terrific. And I also think that you might want to, not that we can do anything with this, but if there's if there is better language that we'll end up having in the next guidelines, we can take the remaining ones in the town hall and insert a piece of paper with the new wording.
Right. I think that we could definitely do that. We'll just make sure that town hall has the updated forms.
Yeah.
Do we? What is the source of the rule that we really do not have jurisdiction to review like for like? Is that just our own policy, or is that part of the state statute?
I'm pretty sure that's part of the state statute. that covers historic districts. There's sort of a standard boilerplate statute with a bunch of rules in it, and that's the one that we use. We can always add to that or adjust that, but I'll check with Mary Dunn about that.
The other thing to along the same vein to clarify, and it was a source of a bit of confusion on my part with respect to one of the questions I raised is one of the things to clarify is that the repair section apparently does not apply to like for like repairs.
That was where you said, what if I have to replace a fence post and I don't find out until the last minute that I have to do it?
Because at least according to the handbook, it says repair or replacement of previously existing features. Do not require HDC review or approval.
Right. As long as they're exactly the same, we're okay with somebody replacing a fence post or something like that. They don't need special approval.
I just had to replace a lot of rotten boards along the sill on the garden side of my house, and it never occurred to me to seek approval from the HDC. It was just replacing the rotten wood.
Right, and I have the same issue with the fence. I mean, so far I have not had to replace anything, but I would not have thought of it except for our discussion of the like for like form. But my point about the form is if somebody's coming to this new, they haven't studied the handbook, they see the form and they say, well, okay, it's like for like, but I'm going to be repairing something. And which part of the form do they fill out?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, can we say something like if there are any changes in design or material? Or
I was going to mention material because, like John, I have the same picket example. And the question is, if you have the same exact design or appearance, but I could see in your case, Deanie, where there's synthetic materials that look like wood, is that like for like or not? So materiality, I think, is the question. Yeah.
I think the state would say that any change in materials requires approval.
That's how the handbook is written now.
Yeah.
It says it has to be. It says it has to be identical in terms of material.
Right.
So going from
wood, when we were redesigning the town hall, we had the issue of did we use wood on siding or did we use synthetic? And we had a discussion at the Historic District Commission about that, and we showed examples of the two different materials and so forth, and then there was an agreement that was okay, but there was a process that we went through of discussion. Now, we almost had to, because three of us were on the Historic District Commission that were on the committee for the rebuilding the town hall. So, but people need to be reminded of that, and I fully think that's a good idea.
Martha, you thought you were done. Sorry, I didn't think of some of these questions beforehand.
That's fine. We have plenty of time to get it right, so we want to make sure it's clear and easy for people to understand.
Do we have a new member of the commission? The dog in the background?
Sorry about that. That's my neighbor's dog.
Oh,
That's okay.
okay. It looks like it's 9:20 and we can open the public hearing for 73 Lime Street driveway improvements. Ginger and Jonathan Harris.
Hi,
So-
so this is Ginger here. And should I say anything or do you all take it away? I've never done this before, so I wasn't sure.
We'd love to hear from you.
Yep, so everybody got copies of what you submitted as far as what you want to do to your driveway. It looks pretty simple and straightforward. Placing gravel and putting some edging, some cobblestone edging on it.
Right, the Belgian block is the cobblestone edging, which appears to be, if on our walks, we've noticed that seems to be what most everyone else that has a stone edging, other than the metal edging, uses this Belgian block. So that's what we would be using. The replacement of the gravel, apparently you can't find the exact color of the gravel that we have anywhere, so it would be technically a different gravel. But once again, we've picked out some that are very similar to what we've seen in the neighborhood. I think one of them's called like Vineyard Pebbles, but it's a very neutral beige, gray, cream colored gravel.
Nice.
Do you want to match what you have there?
I'm actually fine with a different color because right now the color, it looks very, it's all the same dark gray color, which to me
Yes.
Seems like a lot of gray when you look at it next to the house. So I'm fine with having the multiple colored aspect of a different gravel.
I was just wondering because I don't know if have you been to the gravel place over in Saybrook?
Our contractor uses Connecticut Stone, which is over there in Milford. So
Okay.
we went over there and they have, it seems like at least 20 different stone options, and got some samples to bring home to see exactly which one we'll choose.
Okay, it's probably comparable to the one in Saybrook. I'm just going to say that if you did want to match what you had, this place in Saybrook has lots and lots of choices as well.
Okay.
But if you're content with the new color, and my other question is am I missing the picture of the cobblestone?
You are not missing. I don't think we forwarded a picture of it. I do have it on my phone. It's that I could forward. It's just the standard, I don't even know what color to call it other than like a concrete looking color of the, it's technically called the Belgian block, like a grayish cast color.
I think it's all the same.
Okay.
Yeah, they technically, I guess, have some different colors if you wanted to go really dark or beige or something, but we just wanted the standard, what we've been seeing around the neighborhood. We just wanted it to be the same.
Are there any other comments?
No, I think it will look great.
Okay, do we
Do
have
I
a
hear a
motion to
motion
approve?
to approve the C of A?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Are there any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much, and welcome to the neighborhood.
Thank you.
And thank you for
Thank
the
you.
information
Thank you very
you
much.
submitted. It was nice and complete.
Good. This was our, we've been here for, I guess it's been going on 5 years now, but this is the first change that we have sought out for the house outside. We just painted it last fall, but it was the same exact color that it had been before. But now we're trying to do a little more refreshing of the outside, especially with all the rains and everything. We're getting some puddles and just starting to get a lot of weeds. That's the one thing that I guess the rain that we got has done is our weeds are looking great in the driveway now. So I'm excited to get this project done to help with that.
Terrific. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks to everyone.
Thank you.
Martha, do you want to introduce the next one?
The next one is 97 Lime Street, the new shed. This is going to replace the storage container that was there. And I think that you should all have copies of the plans for the new shed. It will be a garden shed, 8 by 16, 12 feet high at the ridge, with an 8-foot open lean-to along the left or north side, to be added at a later date. And we still have a few minutes. That public hearing is scheduled for 9:30, and it's 9:27 by my computer clock here. So did anybody have any questions or comments about this?
No.
Would this be, it's to replace the storage bin, would it be in the same place? How far back from the road is this?
It would be towards the rear of the property. They're going to put it on the foundation that used to hold an old chicken coop.
Yes, I see that.
Right. So it's pretty far back from the Parsons Lane side if you look at the photographs. And let me just look on the site plan here to see if it's actually.
Is Todd Brink with us? Martha, is Todd here?
Yeah.
Is Todd Brink here?
Yeah, Russ is here.
Right. So Todd Brink and Teresa McShane said that they would join the meeting, and they've been given the directions on how to connect.
Todd, is this where we had the questions about the storage container before?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. So we asked them to remove the storage container, but they still needed to have a place to store things. So the shed would be in place of the storage container. So the storage container would go away and the shed would come in.
Yeah, my question was, I'm just trying to picture how, exactly where that foundation is.
Right.
Make sure it's within our jurisdiction.
It definitely is. As I look at the site plan, it looks like it's about maybe 130 feet back from the Boston Post Road,
Okay.
our jurisdiction. It's really right in back of the house,
Okay.
and it's 94 feet from the north side from the north boundary. So it's not anywhere near the edge of anything of the
Right.
property.
And do they propose to paint that, or are they going to leave it natural?
I'm not sure. That wasn't in the. I don't see any information on that. I know the pictures of the shed that they gave us were happened to those. Here we are. The pictures are natural, but they haven't said anything about whether they will paint it or not. I think that we don't weigh in on paint colors or anything like that.
Seems to me like
free
a big improvement from the storage container. This is sort of what we were hoping they would do.
Right.
Right.
They came before us with the original renovation plan. They mentioned that at some point in the future, they would like to put up a small barn or a shed. So, looks like this is that.
Yeah.
Yes. So are there any other comments, or do we want to go ahead and vote on this?
They said that they were coming. Is that right?
Yes, they said that they would be away, but that they would join the meeting remotely.
Okay. Let's wait a couple minutes just to see that they're to be neighborly.
Yeah, I would wait till 9:40 to vote, just in case they join late.
Okay.
If I look at this correctly, Martha, there is a picture of the, it looks like a foundation.
Right.
And then, so they're basically saying on top of that foundation, the structure will go.
Yes. Yeah.
And what is this picture that looks like a little piece of a stone wall?
I think that's the view from Parsons Lane. If you're standing on Parsons Lane, are you talking about the one with a pile of stones in the middle of the grass there? Yeah.
Okay.
That's the view from Parsons Lane. And you can see where there's some kind of a tractor or something in the back and a pile of wood. That's basically where the shed would be.
Okay. So it's way far.
Yeah.
So it's kind of buried between Parsons Lane and Boston Post Road.
Yeah, it's quite far back in the.
I could do a virtual with the Historical Society because I'm trying to do replacement window.
It's quite far back on the property.
Okay. Did someone just join us?
Morning.
Morning, this is Debbie Wade. I just joined in because I wanted to make sure I could get in.
Oh, good. Hi, Debbie.
Hi, do you want me to wait and call back till it's a little closer to my time?
That's up to you. Let's see. You are on at
9:50.
9:50.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could
Because I'm
call
at work,
me
so I can
anyway.
hang up and I'll call back. I just didn't know how long it would take, or I was nervous that it wasn't going to work. So
Right.
I'll call back in just a little bit.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, so are there any other comments on the shed or any questions that we would like to have answered? I can always email them and ask whatever questions we have.
Well, one thing I would say, we do not officially deal with color, but when the Edmondsons built their one shed and then one small building behind their house, they ended up doing them as a dark color, and it sure makes it blend in a lot better. And so I think we should just say I don't know whether either they're going to keep it natural and it will age over about 6 months to a year, or they can paint them, but that just makes it stands out less. But that's not something we can do officially. That's more of a suggestion.
Mm-hmm. We can certainly make that suggestion, and then it'll be up to them if they want to take it.
Yeah. Now, is there anyone who disagrees with that point?
John, one note.
John,
I noted in the comment that the roof was going to be green. Was the one color note that and I assume that meant a metal roof that would be painted green.
Let's see.
Excuse me.
So if that's the case, does anyone have any objections to that?
No.
No.
It did not mention painting the siding, as far as I could tell.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just clarify that.
Okay.
That's a clarification. We have about 2 more minutes, and then we can following John's suggestion. Martha, the submissions you have this time are excellent, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Are you encouraging people to do this, or are they just naturally?
They've been very, very cooperative. People have been wonderful about emailing things.
Okay.
And I've also had a lot of help from Kim Barrows at Town Hall. She'll scan things and email them to me, provide hard copies so that I can scan things and send them to you. So it's worked out very well.
Well, I just think that the application we just looked at and this application have got this combination of verbiage and pictures that are very, very helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. I think we're very close to the time. Do I hear a motion of approval or disapproval?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Approved. It's in your good hands, Martha.
Very good. I will let them know that they can go ahead with that.
And,
Okay.
and
I'll ask for
Martha,
clarification about the roof.
oh,
Just out
good.
of
Okay.
curiosity.
Does the main house have a metal roof?
Next thing on our agenda is
Okay, we're on the next one.
yeah, for the Phoebe Griffin Noyes Library. They decided not to change which was
Right.
originally approved last year. But they do want to talk about where to put the Gilboro sculpture. And it looks like that would go in the front of the building next to the little Japanese maple.
That's right.
And did you all have a chance to look at that?
Do we have a material on? Do we have a drawing on that?
Yes. It's on the same one as 61 Lime Street.
Are there any comments?
So Kirsten Sequins is here. All of a sudden my video blinked out. But hopefully you can still hear me. Maybe you can see me too, I'm not sure.
I can hear you.
Oh, okay, I see where you are. Okay, give me a second while I dig that up.
Okay.
So it's the 61 Lime Street. 7397. Oh, here we are. Excuse me. Okay, I'm okay. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah.
All right.
So this was just our open item from last year. We came in front of this group almost a year ago to the day. It was the July meeting in 2019. And this was an open item that we had promised to come back to you with when we got a little further in the project. So our garden committee had recommended this location. We were talking about it would be lovely to actually see it from the new raised patio and also incorporate this along with a couple of the other items next to it. You mentioned the Japanese maple. There's a chestnut tree in the area as well as the Native American stone artifact. So all those things.
Lost my audio for some reason.
Oh no. Can everyone else still hear me?
I can hear you, Kirsten.
Yes,
Okay.
I can hear you.
Okay, so it was just kind of a nice way to incorporate a couple of elements that have stories. We'd actually like to someday put maybe little information cards in front of a couple of the items that can be seen from that view. There are plantings around it, but the sculpture is, you know, probably 6.5, 7 feet tall. And so that is certainly why we need your weigh in. It's kind of tucked in the back right now just to get away from the construction mayhem. And so we just want to make sure we have the ability to move it around a little bit more before we make the final decision. But this is definitely up for consideration as, you know, one of the possibilities.
When I have just one question, when you say you're proposing information cards, where would they be placed?
They would be down low, and of course, this is something that we would like in our native garden as well too, so it would be consistent, to label plant species, etc. But this particular sculpture was a gift by a patron, Bob Regan, and it does have an interesting story behind it. It actually is a 9/11 creation as well, that he gave to his wife and then ultimately gifted to the library. So,
Yes.
it's we'd love to incorporate all of the things around the library into our programming at some point, or just have, sort of a way to answer questions as they arise. So we have not decided the information signs yet, but they would be very small and low to the ground.
Okay, but they're not handout cards that would be on a stand. It'd be effectively a permanent sign.
That's the talk right now. That is the discussion now. Yes.
But you're not asking for approval of that today.
No, we're not, because that's very much down the road. It's when we get further along in the planting of the native garden that will be, closer to the parking lot side of the front there.
Now, the proposed platform, not platform, but area that you're going to be doing for activities, is it just beyond this? In other words, the picture I have is your picture, which with the Japanese tree on the right and a larger bush or tree on the left. Is it between the two or further out where it'll be seen from the patio?
It will be seen from the patio, but it's between those two trees that you see in that picture. I don't think it'll be entirely obscured because of the way it's shaped and
Right. And is it going to be close to that? What is the gray item? Is that a well or some kind of a stone?
that is the Native American milling stone, and that was yeah, and that also can be scooted around a little bit to sort of make this space work. But again, it's another thing with
That's
a great.
all I was wondering what it was. I understand.
Yeah.
Are we allowed to weigh in at all?
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Lynn.
Can you hear me? Can you all hear me?
Yep.
Okay. This is a lovely sculpture and a lovely gift, but it is a very big sculpture. And I'm got some concerns about how much is going on in the front of the library at this point. I did check to determine if the donor had really strong feelings about whether it was in the front or not. And my understanding, as long as it is in a nice place, he seems fine with it. I would like to suggest that we put it at another location on the library grounds, because I think there's a lot going on. So that's just, and there's several of us, I did talk to a few neighbors who are unfortunately not on the call who do feel that way too.
Does this
I can do it with Lynn also.
Is this something
Enter the ID number followed by pound. If you do not know your attending number, press pound to continue.
Is Martha there?
Okay.
Okay.
I have dialed
in.
There's all sorts of feedback.
Martha, I have a question for Martha. Is this something that the neighbors need to be notified about in the way that we notify neighbors about other changes to properties?
Yes. We should have a public hearing in September on this because this was not included in the public hearing notification that we published.
All right, well, that sounds like our answer.
I also have a question. Is this picture of the sculpture that's kind of pasted in, does that accurately show the size it would be?
I tried to kind of scale it to the way I think the proportions would look, but knowing that this was going to be the start of the discussion and that we could sort of scoot it around a little bit, I can certainly submit the actual dimensions for the September public hearing. And I can.
I think that would be very helpful.
Yeah, and I also wondered if it's something that, we can try. It's not that hard to move, but I didn't want to just do it without letting the commission know. But I would like to actually see if I could place it there and see, that's obviously the best indication of whether we even like it ourselves.
I think that would be extremely helpful.
That would be helpful because
you can also see it now. It's also as you look at the front of the library, it is to the left there. So if you walk by, you can see it.
I think there has to be some truth in lending here. They also have a neighbor down on Lime Street that has expressed feelings like it was not appropriate for the view of these neighbors. So yeah. I'm adding that so that we all are sensitive to various inputs that the library has gotten. So I think the idea of, I guess my own feeling is the idea that we're going to have a meeting in September, public meeting, is that, Martha, I think it would be very good when you send out the notification, that you emphasize that all the people who can see this, and if they have points of view, they have to come to the meeting to make sure their points of view are heard.
Right. I will do that.
This is one of those. This is one of those that I'm trying to be as fair as we can to the library, so that whatever decision we end up with, we've given due process to the people and their points of view.
Place there just to see what it looks like, because I agree with Lynn right now that it would be too much in the front. So it would be helpful to see what it actually looks like.
Very helpful.
I'm just as anxious to see it myself, and so we're certainly happy to do that. And yeah, I'm just glad that you all know that we're going to try to do that and find the best place for it. So hopefully we can make everyone kind of happy.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll advertise a public hearing for September. And then in the meantime, you can temporarily place it.
Great.
Does that sound good? Okay.
I wonder if for peace of mind of the neighbors, when you do move it, that somehow there be a notice posted that this is temporary.
We can publish a little note on our website. I'm hesitant to do anything like hang a sign off of it, but we can certainly make sure that the staff can answer questions about it and put a little blurb out there on our website that we're experimenting with some of the garden design elements that need fine tuning.
I don't know that we have a say over that. I was thinking about the website, but given these concerns, I don't want anyone to think that it's at this point finally approved.
I
The
think
one thing
all the immediate neighbors are on the phone call and no.
Yeah.
If someone's interested, they
I
can
would,
call the library. Yeah.
one other suggestion. You began to talk about the importance of this sculpture and the background and so forth. And I think anything that you write or anything you publicize about it, you need to tell the story of what the donor, why the donor had the sculpture and was gifting it, and the connection to 9/11, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, it would be great to memorialize that.
I've seen this sculpture for years, and I'm a very good friend of Gil Burrows, and I've never heard that story.
Yeah,
But that story influences a person as you're looking at the sculpture.
yes. If I recall, the name of the sculpture is Coming Together.
Right.
And yes, again, Mr. Regan had it made for his wife, and I understand she passed away. But as a patron of the library, yeah, he gifted it to us, and I think we could do it justice by continuing to tell the story of what it represented to them.
Good.
Yes.
Well, I know I've helped Gil name a lot of his sculptures. And there's always a good logic behind his thinking. And this one has a particularly provocative logic, which I think we should leverage.
I agree. Okay.
I want to remind the committee, I normally am not a person who names sculptures, so you don't worry. Well, thank you very much. Is there anything else, Martha? Do you have anything else you wanted to summarize on this area?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. Kristen, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all for your time and consideration. We'll
Thank you.
continue the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Martha. Debbie has signed in.
Hi, Debbie.
Hi, Debbie.
Great.
How are you? Good.
Okay, so Debbie wants to put some replacement windows in her house.
Yep. And I think the picture that Anderson Windows gave me to you is what their structure is, but I am going to do mine are the double pane, 2-pane with the piece down the center. So I'm going to go back, I'm staying with the 2-pane windows.
Okay, wonderful.
Good.
And when you and I had spoken, Martha, we had talked about the exposed wood, but you said you don't have people do that anymore, that I could have the piece that's in between the glass that has, splits the two pieces of glass.
Right. Yes, you can do that.
You can do that.
You can, yeah, because that does make the window cheaper, not having to do the exposed vinyl in there.
Right.
Debbie, I would like if you would send Martha for our records an actual picture of the window that you're going to be using. I'm sure it's available in Anderson's book of windows.
Yes. Actually,
so
I have a brochure at home I did in file.
Yeah, if you just send it to Martha, then we'll have it from a file point of view.
Okay.
That's good. So there'll be two over two.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in the brochure he left me at the house, it shows it shows a picture with the 2 panes.
If it doesn't, I'm sure
good.
he can email you a picture that would
we
satisfy
can,
our pick.
Well, you know what? He did email me a picture of a house that has the windows in it. Of a home he did like in Glastonbury or someplace up that way. So I
I'm
have
okay
that
with
picture, but okay,
Well,
okay. Now, do you
well,
have
I'm
any
not-
preference in because the storms are going to come off, and Anderson is very thorough. What they take off is they put new. They don't like to use the old trim because it gets messed up in the replacement of the windows. So they'll put new trim up around with the windows.
Okay.
So I
And
just
will
wanted
it,
you to
will
know
it
that.
be the
Will it be
same
the
color
same
as
color
it is
as
now?
it is now?
Pardon me.
Will it be the
Will it
same
be the same
color?
color?
Changed the color. The house is beige with brown trim, and I want to do the trim brown with black windows.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to do black in and out. So I didn't know if you had any preference in color.
That's not our role.
You just want to make sure I have the 2 panes like the existing windows look like.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Yeah. And
it looks like
it looks
black
like black
trim
trim
around the windows.
around the windows. Black windows
will give you
will
the
give
same
you the
look
same
that
look
you
they
have
that
do.
you
now.
have
They
now.
do white trim. They do white trim with the black.
White with the
White
black.
with the black.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, against the beige.
Okay.
Martha, are you able to see this picture? Because that's for some reason not showing up on my screen. But as long as somebody's able to see it and compare it to the windows, that's fine. Compare it to the 2/2.
Yeah, I've
Lost
lost
my
my
video
video
and
and
audio.
audio.
Do your time sheet for me.
Well, let's say this. We will. I think this is the way to handle this. We will vote on this, but it'll be contingent on the actual photograph of actual windows that will confirm the 2/2. Is that okay with you, John?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Do I hear a motion that summarizes what I just said?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Deborah, thank you very much.
Okay, and Martha, I will get that picture to you this afternoon and the picture of the brochure too.
Okay,
Okay.
perfect.
Perfect.
Thanks,
Thank
Debbie.
you,
All right.
Debbie.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Safe Harbor Pilots Point.
Martha, is everyone signed off do we only have the commissioners around the table or on the circuit on right now?
No, there's still people on.
I see.
Lynn, Gregory Stroud, Julian,
Okay.
yeah.
That's fine, because they have a right to be on. That's fine. Okay. Could we go to the Secretary's report? Anything else on the Secretary's report?
Not
that I can think of. I think they went over everything.
So Martha, is the next step that you're going to recirculate it in light of our discussion, recirculate that form?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes,
I'll
I'll
recirculate
the form. I will be sending you the picture of Debbie's windows 2/2.
Okay.
And so we'll consider the new like-for-like form in September.
Thank you. Shall we go now to the Lafayette trail marker?
Sounds
I
good.
think
good.
I heard that we'd like to see what the trail marker is going to look like, so that that would be something that we would provide approval on.
We've seen
Because
we've seen what it looks like. I think they sent a photograph.
What I have from Martha is a text message they've sent. Am I missing something?
There's a
yes,
photo.
There's a photo. Yeah.
Where do I get the photo? Apologize for being. Is it all part of that original email that you sent, Martha?
Yes.
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 It is.
It is.
Well, let's just see. Where's the link? Because I don't have a link.
It's titled Forward the Lafayette Trail - Old Lyme.
Let me go back. Let me just get out of this. Okay, now I've got Martha Hanson, the Lafayette Trail, Old Lyme, and I punt that on. And then I see. It's attachments above which attachment?
That's right. It's on the screen right now.
I don't have access to the screen.
Okay.
If you scroll to the bottom, at least on my computer, John, that's how I found them.
Okay. Here we are. Okay. I have 2 points. One is, I think that this should be reviewed by the owner of the house that Lafayette stayed in, which is 1 Lime Street, the McCurdy house, and that would be Martha Ames. And secondly, I'm assuming that this would be close to Martha's house, or Marty's house, and I think it'd be appropriate for her to look at this and we get her input. The second is, I wonder, is that the appropriate kind of stand for this, what is a very important marker?
Well, it sounded as if this is what they look like for the markers they've been putting throughout the region to commemorate this visit. It sounds as if that, from what I read, that was the design they're using to make it a cohesive signage. Is that not what other people thought?
It sounded like it.
Well, I would like to, I have 2 things. It seems to be high. And secondly, while the marker itself seems to be, it seems to be that the actual stand is awfully informal relative to the kind of solemnness appropriate of the plaque.
But this is their organization's sign. This is.
Well, no, I'm just saying we should talk to the organization and say, is this the only version you have, or are there other versions?
You're talking about the stand that it's mounted on?
Yes.
Okay.
I have 2 points. One is, I think it's very important that that they talk specifically to Marty Ames, because it's her house, and this kind of stand would be associated with that house. Secondly, she's trying to sell the house, so we wouldn't want to do anything that would compromise that. And then secondly, I'm wondering whether the style of the sign and the style of the stand, there's a disconnect for me.
Can you hear me, everybody?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Julianne.
Julian from the Lafayette Trail. Hello, everybody. Just real quick, a few questions that you have. The the specifications of the marker, each marker, they're all the same all over the country, actually. We have the colors. The sign on top is cast aluminum, 2x3, colors of France, colors of the US, and the pole is aluminum. So the pole is 7 feet high, and after installation, you get 4 above the ground, and then you add the two of the signs, so it would be 6 feet high in terms of the dimensions. And as far as the location I was thinking about would be more in the town property near the sidewalk, so that the drivers can see, as well as the walks, people going on a walk in the morning or whenever. So I don't think it would infringe at all on the owner's plan to sell the property if she really wants to do that.
Well, generally we have we put information at the actual location where he stayed.
Okay.
And so that's why I was thinking. I mean, let me say, in all the public material that the town has, when they're talking about the McCurdy house, they talk about Lafayette's visit and George Washington's visit. So okay. I think, that trying to reinforce that image, because that becomes a very important marker for the town. It was actually his army, his troops stayed in the green, but he actually stayed in the house.
Yeah, that's fine.
And because of the connectedness of the house with George Washington.
We're focusing on the tour of 1824, though. That's the whole mission and preparation.
And he came back. He came back and stayed with the family, the McCurdy relatives, when he came back.
Richard, correct? Yeah. But
that's the period that they're
our mission would be. I think it would be great if more people would see it instead of just the owners. I mean, this is an indicational marker.
This would be facing out to the street. That's not a problem.
Okay. Whatever you feel comfortable with. I'm just.
Obviously, obviously, we have to ask the property owner if it's all right to install a sign on their property.
Yeah.
I think that, you will, John, to answer John's point, you will make a connection between the sign and the house, a visual one, even if it's off to the side, because there's nothing else to connect it to. I think it would be obvious to passersby that that house was the house that Lafayette had breakfast in on that visit.
The other reason that to keep it connected with the McCurdy house is that McCurdy and the minister of the Congregational Church wrote the first consolidated argument against the British for an independent nation some 10 years before the Declaration of Independence. And the British had them as people they wanted to assassinate for that particular act that they did. So there's a great deal of courage in terms of the McCurdy family and John McCurdy himself relative to the Declaration of Independence and what ultimately happened, as well as the minister of the Congregational Church.
I don't deny that. I'm just you're talking 1760 here. I'm talking 1824, and
no. But the whole thing is a continuation, not just.
Correct.
The reason that the 1825 was so important was Lafayette's role, both in terms of first the role of McCurdy in terms of a precursor to the independence movement. Lafayette. And the fact that Lafayette brought the French admiral and Washington together before the battle with Cornwallis. So there's a lot of connectedness with this particular house and the family and the role they played. That's all I'm trying to do.
So we have very limited space on the markers. I have drafted for you 4 proposals. and Martha added a new one. So based on our program, these would be the most, I would say, natural proposals I could think of, mentioning Richard McCarty and Lafayette and the connection to the house. But we purposely want those markers to have not as many letters as others you might see around, because we want people to read them and
I understand.
Get it. So as much as I appreciate your remarks and I understand everything you're saying, I doubt that the marker would provide enough room to give a sense of this continued.
No, I'm not saying. But let me say, I'm not saying you should do anything changing what you've written down there. I'm just saying my main point was to make sure that you leverage the connectedness between Lafayette and what you did. As long as you mentioned McCurdy's name, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah,
okay.
It is mentioned, yeah. So, I mean, if you're referring this to the landowner, I suppose I'm looking at a Google Street view of the property, and the property seems a little like behind, like it's a little remote from the road, wouldn't you say?
No, you're looking maybe at a different perspective of it. It's right opposite the church. It's
very prominent.
But like if I walk on the sidewalk on McCurdy Road, and then I don't know if there are trees now that block the view or anything, but if I'm a pedestrian walking, I wouldn't be able to read the text if it were to be placed near the house, would I?
Well, we mentioned the McCurdy house in the walking tour that the Historic District put together, the Historic Society. So.
Yeah, but if you don't put the marker where people can see it, what's the point in? I mean, I'm
they'll be able
giving
to see
you
it if they're walking
$2,000
up
worth
and
of
down
money
the
for a marker. If nobody sees it, what's the point, you know?
I think the marker should be somewhere where you make a visual connection to the actual house, the front of the house. Like not on the side on McCurdy Road, but more on Lime Street, right? Where someone sees the sign and they see the house, and that makes a historical connection between where Lafayette stayed, because the house has all kinds of additions on the back, which were probably not there. We know they weren't there in 1824. And so it should be a neat way of visually connecting the sign and the house.
I have a question. It's not our decision, but about this legal agreement. If the town is going to be paying for installation and maintenance of the sign, I really wonder whether they would pay for anything that is on private property. And and there could be, that could raise political questions with, if Marty sells the place, the next owner says, oh, it needs maintenance, and the town says, oh, I don't think it needs maintenance yet. And I just have a feeling this is going to end up, if it's approved, out on the right along the sidewalk on town property.
That's what he's talking about.
Well, I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example of where something has been around. In front of there's a big boulder in front of Deanie's property, which talks about I think a famous general, doesn't it, Deanie?
No, it talks about the first Mason in the state of Connecticut.
That's right. Okay, and that's on private property, but I think, and therefore it's been maintained for years and years and years.
Okay.
It doesn't require maintenance; it's just there. Yeah.
We anticipate that these markers are going to be okay for 20, 30 years easy. I mean, we're talking less than $300 for installing the sign, which we don't cover. But the purpose of me contacting the Historical Commission was that I was thinking of a location along the sidewalk on public property for those reasons that you just expanded upon. That owners change, but the town remains the same. I mean, only the board changes occasionally, but it's much easier, I suppose, to deal with the same entity all the time. And in terms of the legal part of it, yes, you're right. I mean, it's a new owner could potentially decide, because the marker, once we donate it, it's a donation. I mean, whoever the recipient of our marker owns the marker afterwards, so they can do literally what they want with it. But as far as we are concerned, the legal agreement is here to because we have to install dozens of markers all over the country, to be honest. And if I were to accept liability for each and every one of them, I wouldn't sleep at night, because I'm not in the community. So that's part of our business model, which you may agree, you may disagree. This is your full right. Now, my approach was to offer you to be part of the Lafayette Trail. I don't want in any way this to be a burden for the town if you don't feel like it. Okay, there are plenty of towns around you that maybe would consider without those legal problems at all. So I think you have a great spot. We have great history, and I think you could use the Lafayette connection to even make more sense of the Lafayette's 1824 visit. But if you feel like it's going to be a liability for the town, I mean, don't worry about it. Okay, I'll put the marker somewhere else. Don't worry about it.
I think it would be nice to have the marker.
Yeah,
I do too. I have two questions. What is on the back side of the marker? What does that look like? And you mentioned the sign and the support piece being part of the design. Is there a possibility to change the color or appearance of the post itself, or is that part of the overall design?
Yeah, no, we have great prices with the foundry because we have a model that we use everywhere. We order dozens of them, so we get a nice, cut, which is how I'm able to give you a free marker, basically, if you accept it. And that's number one. Number two, these are two-faced markers. The text is exactly the same on both sides, so which is why it's thought to be installed near a road so that both directions traffic can look at it and pedestrians coming from either direction as well. So the idea basically is that those markers are points of entry into the interpretation of Lafayette's tour and its significance for the community, the state, and the federal government, and basically for the nation. And then hopefully people pick up on the logo and Lafayette's tour, they Google it and they find our website where there's tons of this digital resources available, whether maps. I do a lot of maps on my website. I have a bio of Lafayette emphasizing his legacy and his, all those things. Like in America, I'm French, of course, as you figured out by now. And I feel like in this country, the Lafayette's voice is really unique in so many ways. And I see what's going on with racial tensions in this country, and he really has a unique message with that regard. So I would, to me, it's a great. I wish I could claim this legacy for my own, but I mean, Lafayette didn't come to my hometown in France, as a matter of fact, but he came to yours. So if I were you, I would definitely try to celebrate that part of his legacy. But of course, there are these legal problems that you have to consider from your vantage point. But I mean, I'm here to answer any questions, of course.
I think as long as Marty doesn't have time, we should put it in.
Yeah, it's still going.
Does anyone have another point, or should we? Does any one of the commissioners have another point? Hearing none, is there, obviously, when it comes time to put the sign in and so forth, is there any one of the commissioners that would like to kind of be a point of contact for any further questions that come up? Or do we want Martha to be the point of contact?
Well,
I'm happy to be the point of contact, but Martha does such an excellent job.
Well, maybe we have you and Martha can take the responsibility, and is that okay?
Yes.
Could you just outline,
now,
John?
We
Yes,
should
John.
probably all perhaps meet at the site and discuss so that we all know exactly what we're talking about as to where we think this sign should be
Okay,
installed.
that's a very good idea. Martha, can you arrange that?
Sure.
Sure.
And we
And we
also
also need to
run it by the Board of Selectmen
Okay.
because they need
they need
to
to
approve
approve it
because it's a
Okay.
legal agreement.
agreement.
All right. Can we get the picture that we're seeing here? There's two things we need. Do we have an actual copy of the text in addition to this picture?
There are a number of sample texts that he provided for us. It's on one of those links.
We have
John.
that.
Yeah.
Okay. So then I agree with Martha that we need to have a meeting, so we'll decide who. I think clearly, Deanie, you and Martha probably should go, and if you want me to come, just tell me. But that's just your choice. Is there anything else? So, Julian, what I would say, we're going to vote on this in a moment, but afterwards, we need to. We'll work through you and work through Martha and Deanie for any remaining questions. And I also believe the idea of us meeting and looking at it so we can visualize it is probably the right thing to do.
Totally.
Do I hear a motion for approval?
John, I have a couple questions. Sorry.
That's okay.
Why is this not requiring a public hearing?
We should have a public hearing on it once we decide where it should go. And it would also involve the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
And my second question has to do with the wording. I appreciate the suggestions. Thank you for them. But who would be deciding on the wording? I would quibble. I like some better than others. I would quibble with a word on the ones I like, but it's not my decision. Certainly,
Well, let me say this: if we have a subcommittee and you're interested in the wording, I think you should join that subcommittee and work out the wording.
I can do that, or I can pass on my thoughts.
Okay, whatever you. Deanie, how would you like to handle the wording? Deanie? We lost her. Martha?
I think we should discuss the wording. Julian has given us some very nice options.
Okay.
But I think we should weigh in on it.
All right.
So for the wording,
maybe what we should do is the subcommittee should work out what they think is their recommended wording, and if you feel like you want everyone to approve it, you can send that around for a syndication via email.
We could do that, and then it would need to be approved at a public meeting. But we can certainly settle on something
But
that we
we
like.
want to have a proposed wording so we don't end up spending an hour drafting it in public.
Exactly.
Okay.
And
if you would also work out the schedule about when the meeting with Tim and the public meeting, so that we'll have a game plan on that.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that.
And
Julian, thank you very much, and a very interesting initiative. And my comments, I don't want you to interpret that I'm not very enthusiastic about what you're doing. We would not be a nation had it not been for Lafayette. He was one of the key people, and I remember in World War II, The commanding general said, Lafayette, we are here.
One, yes.
World War One, yes.
World War One.
Yes.
I share that, Julian, just so you know, as one of many committee members here.
Yes.
That's why I'm here. To be honest, I'm going to turn 27 at the end of the month, and I feel like our two nations have a lot in common and a special bond. And it's my personal way to contribute to that friendship of ours. And I feel like if nobody builds upon it, at some point it's going to fade and ultimately disappear. And we don't want that. I certainly don't want that. So it takes a lot of work, community level, state, and federal. So, you know, to me, the purpose of this call is to make sure that in your town, people know of his legacy, the fact he came, and the general context of his visits in 1824, which you all understand, obviously, because you expanded upon it quite extensively. So I appreciate your interest and your time this morning. Thank you so much. And of course, I remain available if you have any further questions,
Okay.
whether through Martha or anybody else, okay?
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Are we by ourselves now? No, we are not. Okay. Martha, do you want to take us through the rest of the agenda?
Sure. I think the only, do we want to make a motion to move ahead with this marker?
Why don't you make a
As
motion?
discussed.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
I move that we first have general approval. We approve the idea that a marker of the Lafayette marker is appropriate for Old Lyme. Secondly, that we've formed a working group in order to work out the approval process and review any wording and location. And you can put that in the King's English. I'm not.
Do we have a second for that?
I'll second.
I have a second. I second. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you very much. By the way, if any of you, there's some very good material at the Historic District, at the Historic Society, and also in the library at Flo Grizz on McCurdy and the role he played, and also the historians for the John, you would know the couple that were the historians for the First Congregational Church. Was it the Websters?
Yeah, Betsy Webster is the historian. Carolyn Wakeman just wrote a history of the church.
Okay. One of the two of them has a nice 3 or 4 paragraphs on the role of the minister who framed the rationale for why the United States should become the United States. And it cost McCurdy almost a year's earnings to pull together all the comments, because he had to pay off the black market, all the comments from all the potential first states. So it was not an insignificant thing he did. And he went to New York and brokered that agreement with a number of people who could then move those comments from one part of the potential 13 to New York, and then he could get them out of New York without the British understanding what he was doing.
Yes.
So there's a good deal of courage in what McCurdy did and what the minister did in terms of putting together that first statement of the rationale for separation. I won't go any further. Do I hear a motion for adjournment?
Well, we have something else on the agenda, don't we?
One more thing about the banner frame at the Congregational Church. The frame is back up, and there's a banner in it now.
Yeah. I've had a number of people mention it. It bothers me not because of the content of the sign, but I do think that the church owes us the same courtesy that we expect and really get from all of the other members of this historic district to come in and discuss this. And I know that obviously they've decided they don't have to, but I feel that now that the sign is as political as it is, that the sign should be clearly part of what the church is saying and not part of what is representing the town. Because the way it is situated on the property, it looks very much as if it's sort of a town sign because it's so close to the curb. If they set it back, I'm not saying that we should just give up on them, but if they set it back, at least whatever message they choose to put in that sign would be clearly aligned with their church and not, the wider community.
I have a couple other points. I agree with that. When I drove by, and this was probably a week ago, there were actually two signs out there. The one in the black frame. So I don't know if the other was just temporary or again, I haven't been by in the past week. But if they have two signs, then you have double the issue. The other comment is, I guess, a question in part. Has the commission ever approved the black? I know it was metal and now it's black metal, but have we ever approved the sign frame?
No, they've never come in to discuss it. They've never applied for approval.
Because I, for one, think it's ugly and not in keeping with the character of the district or the church. That's my 2 cents. I'm fully agreed with Deanie that the content is immaterial. They can post, the church can post whatever they like in terms of content, but it does seem to me that this commission should be concerned with issues of design and issues of placement.
So what you're saying is you would like to have them come before us so that the design of the frame and its location has been approved?
Well,
regardless of what they're going to put in it.
They've never applied. They've never applied for approval, right?
No, they haven't.
No, and we've been asking them repeatedly since I think for just about a year to come in and talk to us about the design and placement of the frame. And
that's right.
They have never come, and I consider it to be a lack of courtesy, actually, given that everyone else comes in when we ask them to. So, but we could continue to try, I suppose.
John, do you have a good relationship with Bob McCracken?
Do I?
Yes.
No. I mean, I don't.
Do you have a good relationship with the minister?
No, we don't. We go to another church.
Oh, I thought you did. I'm sorry. Okay. What I'm wondering is, whether a two-step process is appropriate, but I'm not sure. Let me just lay out. Is if we invite Bob and the minister to come for a general discussion on the sign. not that we're threatening them or not that we're saying the other people come, but just basically that we'd like to talk about it. And at the end of that, we can, and we're not asking them, this is not for a question of voting or a question of approval. It's more of a question of having a better understanding of what they're trying to accomplish with what they're doing. And if at the end of that, we say, well, we need to go a step in terms of approval, that would just come out of the meeting. Now, that sounds a little bit complicated, but it would be, I think, helpful for us to get their point of view so we can take it, what we think is going to be the second step.
Well, I mean, what I think they're going to say is that it's a temporary sign and therefore it's allowable. But all we need to have, we need to say, well, since the sign is up continually, it's not temporary. Right. All we've been really asking is to meet with them, and we can't even.
Well, I'm just saying that. Okay, what I'm saying is I want to meet with them. All right, so why don't we then? All right, let me modify what I said. We need to set up a meeting where we meet with them during one of our regular meetings, and we have a discussion of the sign situation. Full stop.
I'm all in favor of finding whatever way we can to have a conversation. If you approach them, you need to emphasize that we're not proposing to talk about the content.
Okay.
I think for a lot of people in town, that may be what they're concerned about, but
that's not our concern.
That's not our concern at all, and I think you need to emphasize that. I don't, we're not going to have a meeting about to discuss the content of their message.
Martha, how many letters have you? How many times have we tried? By my count, it's about 3.
I think about three times. Really, what I think we should be doing is talking about the style of the frame that holds whatever sign they put in it, and the location.
Agreed.
That's really what we have jurisdiction over. The church is very active in social justice issues, and they're always going to have some kind of a sign up depending on what's going on. So I think if we are clear about the style of the frame and its location, then it's clear that they're speaking from the church and not the town.
Yes.
And I think that's been one of our issues all along.
Okay. I think I have my marching orders. Very helpful.
John, are you writing the letter or is Martha?
I'm not going to write a letter. I'm first going to talk to them face to face. And because I think that any letter we write, it'll just go in file 13, particularly if we've already done a couple times. I would like, Martha, if you would write a letter, a draft letter, and send it to me so that when I'm talking to them, I will make those points, because the way you said them was very clear. And just so, and what I might do is after talking to them, I'll simply say, to make sure that we're absolutely clear, you will be receiving a letter from us that reiterates the points we've made in the meeting.
Maybe you hand.
I'll do that.
I mean, hand deliver
Or I could
these.
hand it to them. Yeah, but I want to basically, I think, breaking the ice personally, and then reinforcing it with the club is the way to do it.
That sounds good to me.
What?
It would be an interesting discussion whether they view the frame as part of the message, both in terms of color and perhaps in terms of it not being what has been typical in this town. But that's for the discussion, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we did ask them to paint
it black because it was
kind of a rusty iron, and we thought
we
black would kind of fade into the background. I think that was the last, and they did that. They painted it black.
I didn't realize we had asked them to do that. I thought that was their solution to our query. So that's interesting.
It's in our minutes somewhere.
Tom and I agreed that it should be black.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah.
All right. We've had a very productive meeting. Thank you, everyone. And also, it's amazing that it's great that we're able to have such a productive meeting on WebEx.
Yes, I wish
my system had worked better. But.
Yeah. Are there any final questions?
No.
Well, I hope everyone keeps themselves safe with mask and social distancing. And we'll see you at our next meeting in September. Is that correct?
Yes. And do we have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
I'll second that.
Second. John,
all in favor?
Thank you.
Aye.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Martha?
Bye.
Thank you.
Martha? Are you still on?
Now are you done?
Yeah, I gotta disconnect this whole thing here. God. Clusterfuck. This system. My internet crapped out. My thing stopped responding. I couldn't hear for part of the meeting. I had to dial in. I'm like,
You need a new computer?
no. It's the internet. It's just not very good here. It's like not responding. It's not doing what it's supposed to do. There. Okay. Whew. And then of course one of my commission members hadn't read part of what I sent them to talk about this Lafayette trail marker. And so he's asking all these questions that were already answered in the material and making things overly complicated and everything. So, but it's done. Yay. Done for now. And then my computer started to give me trouble. The battery's going down and the internet connection is lousy, but it's over now. So, and then when I was dialed in to talk to them, there's this echoing, terrible echo, so it was hard to talk and hear people. God, what an awful thing that was. But we got stuff made. We got things done, and everything that needed to get done got done. So, man, that was hard. Now it's not letting me. Yeah, please leave. close it down. It's not letting me stop it. Come on.